Hello, I'm Michael Ortiz, and I will be presenting my action research project, which is on heterogeneous groupings in writing. So the history of this project really started a year ago when the program of English 9 changed completely. It went from track students with accelerated all the way to students being in the same classroom. There's no more regular classes. There are no more accelerated. All the students are in one heterogeneous classroom. When I heard about this, it made me think, can this be possible? Can this be a successful program? And immediately I knew that I wanted to do some more research. When I got to my action research project, it was a no-brainer that this is what I wanted to do for my project. I knew it was going to work directly in my classroom without having to do any changes to curriculum. It was going to go embedded into my new program. So the heart of heterogeneous grouping comes from equity and equality. Essentially, the lower level students are getting different instruction than the higher level students. And the main goal is to fix that so they're all getting the same instruction, to ensure that students have the same interactions, they have the same teachers. Therefore, the goal is to have the same quality learning. Students ultimately need to be pushed to have rigorous courses. The most rigorous aspect of an English classroom has to do with writing. So what I wanted to do was to blend the two, the heterogeneous classroom with the writing experience. I hadn't seen a lot of experiments and projects that done writing with grouping, and that's something that I wanted to explore as a teacher. I thought it'd be perfect for this project. So in chapter 1, the rationale is that if students collaborate with one another, they have a better chance to learn in the most difficult component, which is writing. The writing process really encompasses all the critical thinking aspects, and that's what I wanted to do, to see how would students learn differently. The way I was going to compare it is with students working individually in a normal assessment process where they interacted only with themselves, and then compare it to another writing assessment where they would be working in groups, where they'd have full collaboration, and the ultimate writing response would be individual, but the entire process they'd be working together. So as I mentioned, this is a part of the normal curriculum. The main research questions are only 3. What are the effects of heterogeneous design groups on a student in a formal essay response? So in order for heterogeneous groups to be successful, it has to be high stakes and a meaningful assignment. If it's just a small assignment, students are less likely to see the value of the assignment. So a big essay really enforces the worth of what the students are doing. A major part of writing is the process, and the students will be tracked for their pre-writing, their drafts, and their editing, and then ultimately their polishing or their finishing product. So as individual students, they'll be working on all these things by themselves with very little collaboration from myself or from their peers. In groups, they'll be constantly working and asking each other questions. They'll check each other on how far they are. They'll check to see their organization. And so ultimately they'll have the upper hand with hopes of having a better product. Next. So the last question really has to do what kinds of environments drive the most effective learning for creating a writing product, and ultimately how are these students that are equally leveled going to interact with each other. You have to remember that these students have not been in the same classroom. They've been tracked for all these years from elementary school all the way to high school. This is the first year that many of these students are in the same classroom together. Therefore, it's going to be a challenge for them at the start of the school year to interact with each other and to work out some of those flaws of just socially interacting. So one of the central goals is to enable students from all backgrounds to be able to work together in ways that they never had. In our school site, there is a huge achievement gap from the top students to the lower students. And so really the only way that our principal and our school site teachers thought that we could get them closer is that they had to interact with each other on a daily basis. So in this pilot program at English 9, they're going to really see each other in different ways. So ultimately the heterogeneous grouping is to teach up. If you can teach up to these students that normally are in regular classes, they have an opportunity to reach higher potential. The school culture is International Baccalaureate, the IB program. And in order for these students to reach the IB program, they have to be in higher level classes. If students were in the regular classes, they really do not have the same opportunity as other students to enroll in the IB program. So that was one of the main goals is for everyone is to have higher level classes for everyone to ultimately give them that choice if they wanted to be in the IB program or not. So in my research, I found that there was a lot of positive information for instruction that was heterogeneous. So as mentioned before, heterogeneous can only work if it were creative or critical or enable students to think at a different level. It can't be just basic tasks. It has to be group-worthy assignments. If students are merely reproducing knowledge, the higher level students are going to lose interest, and the lower level students may not catch on either. Another key component, which I'll come back to, is equal access to the accelerated. Everyone has to have the opportunity to be in the accelerated program, and one of the ultimate goals is to get one of those students that may not be in the International Baccalaureate program to be in there and to think of themselves as a positive outlook. Hey, I can do this, and if they're going to want to do it because they're encouraged from their peers. One of the drawbacks that that oppose the heterogeneous grouping is that the skilled students are going to be left behind, being bored, or believing that they are the caretakers for these students. They don't want to be teachers, they want to be innovators. So if you have your high-level students believing that they are not in a significant role, it could potentially be a drawback. The consensus is, once again, that if the flexible grouping heterogeneous is used correctly, quality in instruction, quality discussions will go up, and that should bring up the entire level of the classroom. So once again, the focus is on writing the end product, but really I will be looking at the process to see, are they achieving the steps of the writing process quicker? Hopefully that within their writing process and with their discussions, they will see improvement. So much of the research shows that it really is important that rigor is maintained, that teachers are able to implement work that students are able to increase their level of knowledge at all levels and engage in different kinds of tasks. Tasks should be rooted in complex issues or problems once again, and they can be approached in various ways with various solutions. The ultimate way that teachers will see this is in the analysis portion of the response. Even though students in the heterogeneous groups will be working together, their responses will all be different, and they will give each other feedback, but the varied solutions will be seen, especially in the analysis portion. So the role of the students is to explain and interpret the work of each other, to discuss with one another, and to provide feedback. That feedback is essential that they would not get in working individually. Sometimes the confidence is just what the students need. There were 96 students in this action research project. It covered 3 different classes that were doing the same exact assignment. They were all taught by me, and there were some different responses depending on the class. So ultimately the students were decided by the assessment, the end goal, but I ultimately really did want to look at the goals and the process of the writing. Looking at the scores, it doesn't look like there's much of a change. The overall average was only 0.1 higher in the heterogeneous groups. The true data, as I mentioned, comes from the process and the variation in periods. The biggest period of change and growth from heterogeneous to individual was the first set of students, students 1 through 25, and their process was the most cohesive, and their group work, they truly had the best interactions. I believe that the other periods still weren't acquainted with one another and still needed some work with the group work. Eventually, when they can increase their level of teamwork, their scores will eventually go up as well. So once again, the data doesn't show significant noteworthy results, but for me, going through the process is what was important. The process of each student that they're going through this for the first time in the school year was really a struggle for them, but I saw growth and some confidence in the second assignment where they're working heterogeneously. So ultimately the conclusions are that in order for everyone to benefit, there has to be data. Okay? So there's still the question out there, is it better to be homogeneous or heterogeneous or individual? There isn't an answer yet, but I think that posing the question is what this research project is about. So questions and answers. So as I alluded to, the timing was not ideal. If I were to do this again, I would continue throughout the school year. The project was conducted at the start of the school year where students are still adapting socially to the classroom in both the high school. These were, once again, 9th grade students. And so I've noticed in previous years, 9th graders adjust in second semester. And so part of the data may have been due to the fact that they were adjusting to high school, whether they're accelerated level students or regular level students. Research is not to be fixed. I will continue this research. For the rest of this year, I will continue this research for myself throughout my career and watch it change and more throughout the years. Ultimately, whether the results yielded positive or negative growth, this was about the journey that I took spiritually. I have to thank God and my family, my wife especially, my co-workers, people that helped me in this process. It was not easy juggling so many things at once, and so I have to thank God for this journey, and learning and going through the research is going to help me become a better teacher, and ultimately the results will be shown in later years and at the end of the school year with these students that are benefiting from this master's program. So once again, the final conclusion is that there were so many teachable moments for myself and for the students. I would love to be able to break down this research project in writing components rather than doing a final end product. That would be a recommendation that I would make for different teachers, and ultimately I want to thank everyone that was involved